Hello and welcome. Normally I do graphics programming work, but I've recently decided to get into some Gamemaker stuff. Gamemaker was my first proper game development experience as a kid. I started it almost 20 years ago, just after it gained the ability to render 3D graphics. It was also my first experience collaborating with other developers. You know, wild times. When Gamemaker switched over to Gamemaker Studio, there was an adjustment period. Some people loved the new design, and others felt it was blindly shoehorning in new features. Coincidentally, I stepped away from Gamemaker at the time to focus on getting an adult job. But recently I came back in and I was pleasantly surprised. But enough preamble, let's get into it. Back when punk exploded in the 1970s, it was agile, scrappy, and DIY. Tony Moon illustrated in a fanzine to fill an empty page. This is a chord. This is another. This is a third. Now form a band. This tutorial endeavors to follow in this spirit. We'll be making a simple platformer, writing some code, and that's it. Future tutorials will build on this, but right now we just need to hit the ground running. To start with, install Gamemaker if you don't already have it. It claims to support Windows, Mac, and Ubuntu, but hey, good luck getting it working on anything other than Windows, because it would repeatedly crash on my Mac, and the resolution was shot. Make a new blank project. You can call it anything you want, but I'm going to call mine Elise Madness Comes Back. Okay, hopefully this is visible. I can't find an easy way to change the font size on these little menu items, so I'll just try to illustrate things as best I can. So here we are, we've created a new project and we've got a whole bunch of panels open. Now, don't worry about this, we're going to slowly come to it as it naturally comes out. But to start with, on the right, we have the Assets panel. Now, it's currently full of folders, which Gamemaker calls groups. So see how only one group has anything in it? It's our rooms. Let's go ahead and open up on the hard drive where our project has been created. Okay, so here we are. We've got a bunch of bits of metadata, but we've also got that rooms folder. So it turns out that when Gamemaker makes a group, but that group has no resources inside it, it's just like a virtual group. It's like project metadata. But when we actually put something inside there, it creates the underlying folder. So that's interesting. But what we'll do right now is we'll just go ahead and delete everything except for the rooms. So we've got this one room here. We can click on this, and in the left we have this inspector view. I'm going to go here and just change the name of the room to room win. This will be the room that we show when the player wins. Then I'm going to, just going to create, a new group. So create group, and this will be named sprites. I know. We just deleted that, but this is the process that we're going through. It's totally fine to delete things and create them. It's difficult to get ourselves into a position where we can't recover from it. So I'm going to create a new sprite, and this sprite is going to be called SPR win. Okay, so note that we've got these weird prefixes. This doesn't happen in other editors. And the issue is that in Gamemaker, sort of resources are resources. It doesn't matter whether they're sprites, rooms, objects, sounds, anything like that. They all go in the bucket as resources. So if we're in code and we refer to an object, it needs to have an identifiable name. And it's standard practice in Gamemaker to have these sorts of prefixes with underscores. So what this is going to be, this is going to be the background for the win page. The win page is going to be very boring, sorry to say, but I'm just going to import a background, and this will be in the images folder, which is linked in the GitHub. So we open this up, there we have it, that's our background, and then we can go and set this as the background for the room. So I'll go to my win room, and there's a layer here. There's an instances layer. This is where all the objects go. And then there's a background layer. And I can go ahead and click down here on the sprite and then select inside my sprites that wind sprite. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. But now we're going to need to get some gameplay. To get some gameplay happening, we'll add objects. This will be quite simple. We can always swap out the graphics later. But what we need is a player, a stone block, a lava block, and a goal block. The stone block we can walk on, lava block kills us, the goal block is where we want to go to get to this win page. So we're just going to go over to the sprites, and I'm just going to create a whole bunch of sprites. Okay, so we have our sprites. We need to actually make them. So I'm going to set my block size to 32 by 32. So for the goal block, we'll go, I just went over here. We have size, and I just click this icon. This brings up the size. I'm just going to go ahead and set this to 32, hit enter. Because I had this maintain aspect ratio ticked, it updated both dimensions to 32. I can then click edit image, and this brings up a simple image editor. Now I'm making what, the goal? Okay, so for the goal, I'm going to use this nice blue color, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. So there are two variants of the rectangle, filled or unfilled. I'm just going to do a filled rectangle. Everything nice. Okay, I can go ahead and close the sprite editor there. I'm going to close it there, then bring up the ground, and this is a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, set all dimensions to 32, edit the image. Now for the ground, I'm going to have sort of a gray block. And then I'm going to give them a darker border, and I'm actually going to make that border a little bit thicker. Oops. Wrong variant. There we go. Cool. Yeah, that's fine. Again, for the lava, nothing too exciting. It's just going to be like a reddy orangey filled rectangle. That's what lava looks like, right? Okay, cool. Now for the player. And again, this is completely just temporary assets. We can swap these out later. But I'm going to go with a custom aspect ratio. I'm going to go 32 by 48. Cool. Okay. Then I'm going to go in and edit the image. And the player is going to be a white capsule. So I'll just... yeah, I'll do filled ellipse. I'll try to roughly eyeball it. That looks pretty good. So I'll have an ellipse from the bottom and the top. And then just fill in those corners. Okay, that's looking pretty good. That's like a capsule of some sort. We can go ahead and close that. Right, so, oh, by the way, it's probably good just to verify that this thing is even working. So we can play the game. Currently we've got the win room. It loads up, and that's our win room. Okay, that looks pretty nice. Now we've made these sprites, but we're going to need to make objects, because a sprite is just a graphic. We need an underlying object to render that sprite. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click, create group, and this group will be named objects. I know, I deleted it before, that's fine. And then I'll create a whole bunch of objects. Okay, I don't think I've missed anything. Now for each of these, I'm going to need to set their sprite. So here's my object goal. I can click on the sprite icon and get into my sprites. There we go. Close that down, and then do the same for all of these. With all those defined, we can go to our room and create a new room. And this will be called Room Game. I know, not very imaginative, but it works. Now, all my blocks were 32 by 32, so if I just click over to the grid, I can verify that I'm going with 32 by 32. You may need to change this. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to create the stuff. So on the right, I select an object, and then I hit Alt, and that object appears at my mouse. I can sort of move things around. But if I want to draw something, then I just go click, and that draws it. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort of, make a level. And if I want to get rid of something, I just click on it to select it, then hit delete, and that deletes it. Something like that, I guess. We'll go ahead and create the player. Okay, cool. So, as I said, if we play this right now, we won't see this. What we'll see is just, the win page. And that's because, as you can see here, this win room is the entry point. We can change that by clicking off to the side. There's this sort of reorder button, and I can get my game, and I can move that to the top. So now the game is the starting room. Can give that a go, and there's our level. But as you can see, currently nothing is happening. And I am thinking some of these jumps are a little tricky to make. So maybe I'll just, does this make it too easy? Does it matter? That's fine. We'll need to program some behavior for the player. Let's open up the player object, and we have this events tab over here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new event. Each of these events are set off at various points throughout the game's operation, and we can insert script for any of them. I'm going to go with the create event, and then off to the side, I can get rid of all this. The player's going to need two things. We're going to need to track their movement speed, and we're also going to need to track whether they're currently on the ground. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. It's made some variables for us. Going to need to update them. So I'm going to add a new event, and that is the step. And by the way, there are variants of the step event. There's begin step, end step, and step. And this is if we have an update which has multiple stages, we can synchronize it and break it down into different stages. But there we have it. So there's a few things I'm going to do. Just write the basic structure here. One thing I'm going to do is apply gravity. Then I'm going to handle keys, and that'll be the left key, the right key, and the space for jumping. Then I'm going to move, and then I'm going to handle collisions. Wonder if I spelt correctly. Again, doesn't matter, that's fine. Then I'm going to handle collisions with the goal. Okay, so let's do the keys first. So for the keys, this is done with, I think it's keyboard. There's a few of these. So we have keyboard check, pressed, released, all of that. Now pressed and released are just set off as one-off events when a press or release physically happens. But the one I want is to check whether the key is currently down, check their status. So I'm going to call that keyboard check, and then inside that keyboard check I'm going to need to put the key code that I'm checking for. And this is done with virtual keys. So I'll go VK left, and we'll say okay. If that's occurred, move to the left. And then the last one was the space. So with the space for jumping, we can't just jump straight away. We also need to be on the ground. And there's something I messed up here. So in Gamemaker, y equals 0 sort of corresponds with the top of the screen, and larger y values are heading down. And so we want to sort of move up, which is the reverse of what you might expect. Cool. So again, if we were to do this right now, literally nothing would happen. We need to do some movement. So what I'll do is I'll take the x and we'll increment it. So we'll say x equals x plus movement speed 0. Okay, let's give this a go. So we'll go ahead and run it. Currently nothing's happening, but a few funky things are happening, right? So one thing is we can move through blocks. And another thing is that I'm just hitting the key like tap, 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 like that. So we're sort of moving indefinitely. We can fix the moving indefinitely by resetting our speed at the beginning of every frame. That stops the sliding, but it doesn't stop the issue where we are basically moving through blocks. The basic idea to move through blocks is, or to collision test, is to take the position we were going to move to, check if that position has a collision or not, and then optionally move to that collision. Sort of a look ahead method. So I'm going to make a variable. I'll call this test x, like that. And we'll notice that this test x has come up with an error, and it's saying, hey, this is declared outside of create. So there are different types of variables, or different scopes of variables. When we declare variables inside a creation event, these get scoped to the object. They're saved in the object as object variables. Between different events, we have access to the movement speed variable. But this test x is just a temporary variable. It's scoped to this bit of code, and it'll be thrown away when the event is over, which is perfectly fine. We can declare that with the var keyword. But we've got another little thing, and this is a less severe warning. It's what Gamemaker calls feather messages. So if we go, don't know how visible this is, but right down here there's a window called feather messages. And this is saying, hey, this naming is a little bit dodgy. It's a local variable, so consider prefixing that with an underscore. Now, the reason that we need underscores is that technically object variables should be accessed through the self keyword. So we have self dot, and then all of the object variables which we have access to right now. So we can go self.x, for instance. Doesn't matter, that's totally fine. But you can see how annoying it might be to write self.x everywhere. And so the context of this is understood from the event and the way everything's set up. This has a downside, and the downside is that it then becomes harder to tell the difference between local variables and object variables. And so the convention in Gamemaker is to add that underscore at the start. But getting ahead of myself, let's do the actual collision checking. So to check for a collision, there's a function called place meeting. And it's basically, hey, do we meet something at this place? So for the x coordinate, we'll use that x coordinate that we want to test. We use our current y coordinate, and then the object we're checking for is the ground. So we will only move if this does not occur. So we'll say exclamation point does the not operation. So if we're not going to meet something at that place, then we can accept that x coordinate. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the y. Okay, great. So I think we've set that up just fine. We can give it a go and just verify. Oh, okay. Okay, give that a go. And just verify that we cannot walk into these walls. This will take a bit of time. Okay, cool. So currently we can't go there. We can reverse. Yeah, totally fine. Cool. So as you can see, it does take a little bit of tweaking to get everything like looking natural. So let me just speed up the walking. And now I reckon we can do some actual gravity work. So I'll make a variable. Yeah, let's go with a value of 1. And we'll take... Yeah, now this is very careful with this. So if we don't use that underscore, there actually is a gravity parameter for these objects. But I like to just code my own physics because why not? So anyway, we've got this value. Every frame we're sort of resetting our speed, and I'm going to need to add a bit of logic here. So if we're on the ground and we jump, then now we're not on the ground. And likewise, if we're checking our Y movement and we can move in that space, then okay, go ahead and move. Otherwise, there's a pretty good chance we just hit the ground. So if that happens, well, I keep writing self now. Okay, so first up we want to stop our vertical movement, and then we want to register that we just hit the ground. So we can go ahead and test this, give it a play, and as you can see, I'm hitting space to jump, but we're not really having much happen. So again, it takes a little bit of tweaking. What I found is if I reduce the gravity a bit, and then dial up the jump energy, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we've got pretty good jump happening. Can we make it? No, we cannot. We might have to... This is not an exact science. Just made it. There we go, it's pretty good. So now we just need to handle a few cases. First up, we need to handle the case where we just fall off the map completely, and then we need to handle a case where we hit the lava or the block. But surprisingly, we're almost done. So for the falling off and lava case, we'll say, so I reckon a height of 1,000, we're pretty far below the screen. We'll have that. If that happens, or we hit the lava. So at our current position, looking for object lava. What we're going to do in this case is we're just going to restart everything. So we'll go game, restart. You notice something similar with all of these, and that is we usually, if we're working with a subsystem in GML, the subsystem name usually comes first. So here we're using the keyboard system. We start with the name keyboard. Here we're using game system, and so on and so on. And what we'll do here, we hit the goal, we're going to go to the next room. So that's the room system, just like that. And my laptop is humming like it's going to take off. So let's give this a go, see if this is working. Alrighty, so if we fall off, okay, we can die. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. And we can win the level. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's it. Honestly, there's a lot more to cover, but these are the basics. So what are you waiting for? Go make games. See ya. Hi, so I just wanted to take a second to say thank you to all of my channel supporters. If you would like to support the channel, it's $2.50 a month. That's all I ask. But it's not expected. If you are not able or willing to support the channel financially, the best thing you can do is the usual: like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you'd like to see, let me know what you're enjoying, because I am trying to make the best educational content that I can under the constraints. So with that out of the way, really big thank you to Antonin Karet, Dankil Foles, Declan, Endelon Studios, Isaiah Meyer, Mathieu Derick, Moim, and Shreya. Thank you so much, my dudes. I really do appreciate it. It's fuel for the fire. Keep me going, keep me motivated. But yeah, have a great one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.